Hey all, Pixel here in Probable Garage. We're back on the Thunderbird Jr. and we're going to try and finish up the chassis and get it running and driving in this video. There's still a couple little odds and ends parts I need to pick up, mostly involving running the cable, but there's a few things I can do without that. Obviously, this is going to have to get cut down. We're going to have to make a mount for the steering wheel, and then we're going to have to weld that on so the steering wheel can be in place, and that'll finish up the steering. This just needs to get trimmed down now that I know I don't need to make taller holes in it. We have to mount the pedals, which involves drilling through here and bolting the pedal through or making some brackets, whichever seems like it's going to be easier. The throttle assembly needs to be mounted to this, which is going to involve some modifications because it's designed for an engine that doesn't have the tank, and it's actually designed for the larger engine. I don't know if it's going to bolt directly on this one, but we can make that work. So a lot of things, but they're all little fiddly stuff at this point. We've got the basics down. We just got to make it 100%. Alrighty, tons of progress. So, steering wheel's on and mounted, plates welded on, trimmed down, drilled out for the 3 bolts. The final version will have probably shorter bolts, but definitely lock nuts. These got a little bit more welding to straighten them up. They're probably going to get another weld underneath here when it gets taken apart for paint. Same thing here, these got strengthened up. I may still add a little triangle gusset over here, but I don't think I actually need to, because it's not actually going to be subjected to a ton of force forward and back. It's going to be subject to side, which doesn't really need a gusset. This got trimmed down. I tried flipping these around a little bit to see if I could get these out of the way of where the pedals were going to be, and none of it really worked well, so we're back to the original setup. As far as the pedals, I was stressing about that, and then I had a great realization. If you can see that little bit of silver that doesn't have threads there, the shank diameter on this without threads is wider than this beam. So I don't have to put a sleeve in there, because the whole reason you need to sleeve a piece of metal if you're drilling a hole and bolting like this is so that you're not crushing it. But since the threads don't go far enough, I can't really crush that. I should be able to, even with what's left, put either a washer on either side or one washer, one side or the other, tighten this all the way down, and it'll have the tiniest bit of side-to-side play, which means it's not crushing the tube, which means it doesn't need to be sleeved. Both pedals are mounted. I've got a decent amount of travel on both of them. If anything, this little stop here, I may need to bend so it sticks straight out and weld a stop in over here, because the pedal may need to actually come forward more. If I need more travel, that's how I'm going to accomplish it. I'm going to move both of the pedals so they tip forward more, so you get them earlier in their arc. So you're not pushing from vertical to down, you're pushing from slightly ahead to vertical to down. But I don't need to worry about that until I get the cabling hooked up. But the front end now is done. Steering works all the way from a steering wheel out to the wheels mounts properly. The pedals are mounted. So this is all as done as it can be right now. The next step with the pedals is going to be, I need to make or find or something to hold the end of the cable sleeve. Because, you know, these are standard bicycle type cables, and you can see on this, see, like, there's a little furrow that the end of that's going to sit in and come out so that the sleeve stops, but the cable can move freely. And then this is a bolt with a hole in it. that the cable can pass through and they get clamped down. I basically have to duplicate that over here. I don't need an adjuster though, because I already have an adjuster at that end. Same thing with the motor. It'll have an adjuster on the motor end. So these just need to be a stop. So worst case scenario, I'm going to go out tomorrow to a couple hardware stores and stuff and see if I can find something for that. The springiness of this brake is going to pull that pedal up. This throttle return spring on the engine is going to pull that pedal up. So I don't need any kind of things there. If those pedals end up feeling like they're too far, outboard, I can bend the two bends on them to basically move them in and down a little bit to compensate for that. That'll bring the pedal over some. All right, so the next thing is we're going to be working on the motor here. This is the adapter kit that I bought. Like I said, this is for that motor and is designed to work with the fuel tank off. So it's going to take a little bit of work to get it to work on this motor with the fuel tank on. There's a bunch of parts in here that are not at all clear what they do. So it's going to be an interesting little experiment because this is not the same engine block, this is not the same tank, this is not the same shroud, and this is not the same carburetor. So what needs to happen is that this lever needs to pull itself that way with the return spring, and the throttle needs to pull it that way. So the cable is going to come out in this direction somehow. Other than that, I have no idea how I'm doing this. So realistically, all I can kind of do is futz with it until I figure it out. Good odds I'm going to have to cut that bracket up, but that's okay. I'm not too super stressed about that. And just to be clear, they make a bracket. This is the little 79cc motor. There are companies out there, if you do some Googling, I don't remember off the top of my head, there are companies that make a bracket that bolts onto this, that picks up these two bolts, fits right here, does all the things, and you never have to modify it. It works with the tank on and everything. The reason I don't have that one is I was expecting to use that motor, and I was expecting to have to take the fuel tank off it. So this one was cheap, and it was fine for my purpose. So yeah, like I said, what I'm about to do, just go buy the right bracket, and you don't have to deal with any of this. All right, sometimes I just got to mess with stuff, and I just don't feel like recording, and this was one of those, but I did figure it out. I tried cutting up this bracket, but part of it was it's aluminum. So once I realized I couldn't get exactly what I needed out of this, there was no way to modify it further by welding anything on or whatnot, so I went away from that. And then after futzing with it a little bit, I came up with the simplest solution in the world. This is that little bracket that took the ferrule and then had a 45-degree bend with a hole. I literally took the ferrule out, clamped that part in the vise so that that portion wouldn't get distorted, and then bent the whole bracket 90 degrees and trimmed off over here until it fit on that bolt. And this is locked in because this little bit right here is up against the frame, up against this. So this isn't moving at all, and it's going to be a little hard to show you because I'm trying to do this with the hand on. It just works now. Super simple, super easy, absolutely zero effort. It's going to get a little tight with the cover over here, but that's not going to be a huge deal. And the other one, the kit pretty much put the ferrule in a similar place. I do need to get a spring, so that's going to be another thing. What I think I'm going to do, there's this bracket right here. It's got a couple holes in it. I think I'm going to do something with it over here off of this bolt or off of the bolt for the fuel tank, like bend this 90 degrees and then just put a spring between that and this. And I think, actually, especially off the fuel tank, I think that'll be a perfect one. I'll get a couple different lengths and stuff so I can get one that's got a nice spring back that isn't too hard to either overcome with the pedal or too weak, because right now this is the only one doing anything and I don't want to trust it all to that, but that'll be a super easy little bracket to make. 90-degree bend, hack the bit of this off I don't need. Done. So I've now got a working throttle on the motor. Super easy. Like I said, this is really, really, especially because there's a stop here, this is fine because I can't overstretch the cable because this hits a hard stop. So it shouldn't be an issue at all. And it does have a fair amount of distance that it's moving. So I think using the small hole at the pedal end that'll probably give me perfect amount of travel over there. So yeah, this is basically solved. Like I said, I got to go get some springs, so I'm going to leave this disassembled for tonight. But yeah, I've been doing little things because there's only so much I can do tonight. So little brackets made to put a spring on. Tank is back on. I've put oil in it because I wanted to be able to put the chain on, and I can't fill it once the motor's in place. So chain's on nice and tight. This is on temporarily. Before I run it with the body on, this is going to have to get repositioned, but at least it'll be quieter for my test running. This cable is on for the brakes and run to the front. Obviously, we're still needing all that stuff at the front. So I could, at this point, put fuel in it and crank it over and see if it drives the wheel. I'm not gonna, because I want to be able to do that and then immediately drive it, because I'm super impatient. Alrighty, new day. Went and did some shopping, so hopefully we can finish this up. Got myself a little spring here, just whatever one seemed like it was going to be the right size. So now this has just got a stronger return. That makes me feel a little safer about that. The cable's out because I was using it to do some hunting around. I was able to find this at, I believe, O'Reilly's. And this is a cable stop. You know, it's basically designed to replace one of those. But what I'm hoping for, because, dear God, my options were limited, open, is these are threaded on both ends with two different sizes. So what I'm hoping I can do is mount it using, you know, one of the bolts, maybe not that one, but, you know, mount it using one of the bolts through one side and then tighten it down with the other one. I'm not quite sure if that'll work, but I'm like 80% sure that'll work. And that'll solve two problems at once. That'll solve the capture the end of the wire, and it'll solve the mount to the pedal problem. So hopefully that'll be good. This is my solution for the sheath stop. This is that same brake line fitting that I had some of them in there. And what I'm going to do is drill out in this end big enough to fit, you know, the sheath part way in, but not all the way in, and that should stop that. And then this is just a steel nut so that I can weld that to there and have it all work. I did get lock nuts because, or the, you know, these are the kind of nuts where the end is kind of stamped down, because the threads are not quite the same between this and between this. So that little locking bit is going to take up that little bit of slack and lock those together. So like I said, this is going to be there, and I think it should work just fine. So I got a little fiddling to do with those ferrule ends to figure out how to mount them to the pedal. I got to weld those two nuts on, and then I think we're ready. I think that was the last thing aside from fuel. So yeah, let's get that done. Alrighty, we are set. Welded on, drilled out. This is mounted. I was wrong. These don't use two screws from either side. They just use one from one side that just kind of pushes the wire, and you know, as it goes past the hole. So the same hole, the same screw that's pinching that is the one that's mounting it to here. I did have to drill all these out one size bigger to fit the 1/4-inch bolt. Well, it's actually a screw head, but this 1/4-inch screw there. Put some washers on these and tighten them down. So brake, fully functional. Throttle, fully functional. I have a little slack in the throttle cable, but I think once I've tested it, I'm probably going to put more slack in the throttle cable, because I don't want, you know, to potentially have that mechanism back there partially deployed all the time. Oh, apparently I should tighten the steering wheel down. But we now have fully functional brakes. We now have fully functional throttle. We have fully functional steering once I tighten that down. I need to also possibly snug the... No, I did snug the tire rods down. So we are put the front tires back on, get it off the table, put fuel in it away from running... Oh. It's going to be a little bit awkward because I have no floor. I'm going to be sitting on this bar basically, but it should be enough to find out if the thing functions or not. I'd rather find out right. This is the first time I can find out whether it works at all or whether I've totally messed something up. So yeah, I gotta go clean all the shit off. Yep, so I'm gonna get this all back apart. I'm gonna get it on the ground. We're gonna put some fuel in it, and then we're gonna find out what it's like. Alrighty, we're about to go take it for a test drive. It is blowing like hell outside, so just assume the audio is gonna be trash. But I did, once I tested just pushing the pedals, I had to put another bolt in here to pinch that because that one pulled through the screw on one side wasn't enough. But other than that, gas is going in it, and we're gonna go for a ride. Well, I didn't die. All right, my idle's definitely too high because it wants to move along in gear, so I have to adjust that. Neither pedal worked really well after I used them once or twice. The brake kind of works, but just it feels spongy, but it's a cable, so I don't understand. The throttle was definitely being weird. It both stuck engaged and not engaged, and I don't quite know what. Oh, you know what? I just saw what happened. This pulled through. I bet the other one's doing the same thing. I bet these are not actually going to work because the cable end just pulled through it. I think if I flip them around and put the metal ferrule in there, that might work, but I might have the same problem on the other end. But first the throttle wasn't doing anything, and then it jammed on. The steering is definitely twitchier than I'd like, but I think I can adjust at least some of that out. But it is a go-kart. It does go-kart things, so I think I can call that a basic success, and now it's all kinks to work out of it. Next day, now that I've made the go-kart work, let's make it less deadly. That's what this baggie's for. What I've got here, a bike shop that wasn't open on Sunday when I was doing all that. I was able to get these. These are actually used. This is the little ferrule that goes in the end of a brake lever on a bike. This is exactly what I was trying to build a replacement for the other day. This is the right thing, so it's just going to work. The threading is different, so I've got nuts to match. And then the cable end things that I've got attached to the pedals, the screws that are on the inside are already starting to come loose, and it's because you can't get enough torque on them. So I got some shorter bolts that I should be able to use for that. And then I'm not going to use these now, but these are lock washer versions of what's holding the rear wheels on. Final assembly, it'll get these. Because you can only use those once and then they aren't lock washers. So this is going to get cut off, cleaned up, and then that other nut is going to get welded on. And I got ones with flanges because it's so much tinier. I wanted to be able to weld the flange down without ruining the thread. This is what I was talking about where those things are going to go, because one of these was, this one is already loose. And then those are probably going to have to be shortened anyway. But this is a 3/4 bolt. That's a 1/2-inch bolt, so it's at least less I have to mess with. And then I figured out part of why the steering is so twitchy is this is a very short lever arm here. It didn't even occur to me when I was doing all the building work that like the distance from here to the pivot or here to the, you know, the center line this way is pretty short. So the amount that this is moving relative to that is actually noticeable. So what I think I'm actually going to do is pull these off, drill 2 holes a little bit further down, closer to the center line. And then these may get mounted from the other side just for clearance issues. But if I make this lever arm shorter, it gets closer to this one and the steering will become less twitchy. All right, made some changes. So this has been mounted, that's been installed. I like that way better. Double bolts on this, that's a lot more solid. This bolt doesn't snug it, but this bolt does. Hopefully it won't pull the cable through. Same thing on this side. Worst case, I'll put a longer bolt in here. And then these have been cut down. I may now have too little steering, but we'll find out. That's still up in the air. I've tightened the spring up a little in the back. I might get a stronger one because I would like that to have a little bit more yank now that I'm using a pedal. But I'm going to take this for a spin. I'm not going to take you along because you won't be able to see anything. It's pitch black out there. It's staying partially throttled, which means like I had it on choke to start it and it crept. And so I like grabbed it, put it on run, and it tried to go. So I fiddled with it a little bit and it seemed okay. And then I got in it and tried it and I was having the same problem. And I got in it, tried to accelerate. It wasn't really accelerating. It didn't seem like it was accelerating properly. Or at all, like the pedal didn't seem to be affecting it. And then I got out of it and it took off. And I was between the two vehicles and basically ran into the back tire of the Cube and stopped, and thank God, or it would have, if it was more directly aligned, it would have gone straight across the street. So I had to shut it down there. And what I'm noticing now that I'm playing with it is this is full return. It's actually at half throttle. It seemed like it was pulling it all the way back, but it's not. And it seems to be this spring is the problem. Like, you know, my spring over here wasn't affecting this because it's on the other side of where this spring is. So maybe this needs to be over here. Hang on a second. We're going to experiment a little bit. I think I might have this spring set too strongly, but I'm not actually sure. Yep, that was the problem. Okay. I had this spring too far. I had this spring too far out on this lever. So it's constantly applying tension, which was basically keeping it at half throttle. For the sake of my sanity, I'm going to shove that tire there so it can't go anywhere. And it's idling now like it wasn't before. It was racing before even a little bit. The clutch isn't turning. There's no juice. I think that dying may have been the function of leaning it over. There's not a lot of fuel in it. so much better. So that was utterly controllable. There's like very little throttle. It's a very small amount of throttle that does everything. So I need to adjust which position I've got this in to pull the cable even less, I think. Maybe down, I don't know. Either that or I need to put some more slack in the cable so that it starts doing something a little bit, I don't know. But the total swing of the throttle is not much of that. And I'm not super fond of it. But it's not like it's dangerous, it's just annoying that it's like, brr, like you can't just like mat it. Or rather you don't need to mat it to get it to go full tilt. It's like nothing in full tilt is very little of the pedal. The brake's kind of mediocre. I don't know if it's just because this style of single wheel brake is kind of mediocre. I think it might need a little bit more tightening, but it's hard to be sure. Like I said, I have no experience with go-karts. I literally, the last time I rode a go-kart, I think I was in early double digits. And that was a long time ago. But it's drivable. The steering is so much better. Oh my God. Like, this is controllable until you get to a speed you shouldn't be going in something, especially without a floor. But until you get to a speed where you shouldn't be going in this, the steering is totally fine. And even then, it's not dangerous. It just starts to get a little bit twitchy. So moving those down fixed that problem completely. That changed the ratio. Steering is totally fine now. And it's not a great turning radius, but I can do a U-turn in the street without struggling, and that's probably going to be good enough. I've weaved in through here without a problem, so I'm going to say the steering is solved. So throttle is solved, except I don't like that twitchiness. But for now, it's solved anyway. The brake's kind of mediocre, but I think that might just be the brake. So I think yeah, this I can call a success. This is a unmitigated success because we're now down to tuning. Everything works. It's just down to getting things how I like it. The go-kart part can be checked off right now. Yes. Dude, I built a go-kart and it works. I'm really happy with that. I may have to build more things with little dinky engines that go zoom, because that's just a shit ton of fun. I don't unfortunately have a lot of opportunity to use something like that because I live in a very dense neighborhood, and I both don't want to be that asshole running gas engines up and down the street like that, and also I don't want to encourage my neighbors to do more of it than they already do. Oh my God. Most of them are their little terrible little pit bike type scooter things, but cool. I'm overjoyed. I am utterly delighted. So today the goal is get the body fully mounted. That means get it so it sits back on here properly now that I've added a steering column, as well as build out the other mounts and such along so that the chassis is 100% done. I want to get the chassis 100% done before I start in on the bodywork, so if I have to do any cutting or modifying of the body beyond the dashboard I already know I have to cut out, I won't have already started making it nice, only to cut it back up again. I don't think there should be anything else of any significance. I might have to make some very slight cuts, like in certain places, maybe in the front and rear for bumper brackets or something. We'll come to that when we get to it, but I just didn't want to start on the body and then feel like I had to move backwards on it. So step one is going to be drop the steering column out of it, put the body on it, figure out where I'm going to need to cut the body, and then do that so that the steering column can go back in. We can set it on in its correct position, and then we're going to have to build the platform in the back for me to sit on here, which is going to have to be built around the fuel tank. We need to build the outriggers to pick up the holes on the side of the body and also just protect the side of the body from flex. We need to modify the exhaust to bring it down and out of the way. We need to figure out if we are building out for the body mount hole that's over here. I got to put a bar across here and over here so that I have something to build a mount for the rear of the body out of. Do the same thing on this side for the side mounts. And then on the front, I want to build a little bit for front bumper. I have decided that I'm like, at this point, I'm about 80 to 90% sure that I'm going to put bumpers on it. I just realized it would be good to have something you can grab there to lift the body, the whole thing, not just the body, so somebody doesn't grab it and try and lift the whole thing by the body, but also it'll protect it against a bump in the front and rear. So if, you know, I or a kid or whoever's on this and runs it into something, you don't just crush the whole front end in. You know, and if you lift up the front because it's going to have such a heavy overhang, you don't snap the back of it off or something. So, yeah, it's, oh, and I need to move these to give me that little bit of extra calf clearance I was talking about. I'm pretty sure that moving these is going to be integrated into that side support. Just donkey work, really. I'm just going to try and bang it out as fast as possible so that I can get to the fun part again, which is the body work. Now that the fun part of building the chassis is done, I want to do the fun part of the body work. Alrighty, well, that went on for a while, but I was on a tear, so I was gonna fucking go for it. So, I got a lot done. I didn't get everything done, but I got a lot done. Let me run you through it. These got installed like I planned to. They're welded down here because I'm not quite sure how I'm doing the floor, so I wanted to leave this top piece clear because I realized having this here was actually potentially going to be an issue. Then I built out these side sections to support the body with the hole for where the body hole is. I'm being really tempted to drill a hole in the body somewhere back here for these, just for better stability on them. But these are not supposed to take any weight, so that's not really vital. There is going to be a gap because the body kicks out very steeply over here. So if I tuck this hard against the body, it would actually be annoying to get it on. So I guess the body will get sucked to it a little bit. That'll be fine. Once I built that, this came down and met here. So you can see this is where I was talking where I needed calf room. The old one was in here and went to there. So it's now in by, you know, the 1-inch diameter of the pipe and then straight down. So that'll give me a little bit more room in there. I rounded off the edges here just to clean that up. A lot of this that I just added is either just tacked or not fully welded because it's going to be easier when I can turn it over and whatnot. So that'll happen at the reassembly stage. Obviously the same thing happened on the other side over there. We'll get to the body in a second. Over here, this is my solution I came up with for the exhaust system. It's right now it's touching here, but I was planning to trim this back a bit anyway, so I'm not worried about that. But cut the pipe, welded this on. This is slightly ovoid, so this got crunched down a little bit, welded on, and then brought up here, and then had to do some slightly weird stuff here with cutting and bending and whatnot to get the very edges to meet over, just because this is all, there is no circular section of this pipe. It's all been cut and bent in weird ways, and it's all coming into here and here at angles. So that was kind of the best I could do. I like it down here. I'm hoping it's down low enough. If it's not, I can always extend a tailpipe down, but I think it's going to be okay. I think it's low enough to be below the body. And then this right here, which is still hot, is the piece that's going to go there to be the seat panel. But what I realized is the body slopes down a bit. So to be on the safe side, what I'm going to do is fit the body on hold that up in there and on there and tack it on the bottom. So if it needs to be at any kind of angle, it will be. So I don't F myself by welding it dead flat and then discovering now the whole body is being held at this point out here and kind of floating above all of this. So aside from welding that on, everything that I built today is done. Over here, this all got cut out. It's going to get cleaned up more when I do the final body work, but it all got cut out. And then this little bit got rounded here to fit the steering shaft, so I didn't have to cut higher just to clear that. This will obviously be filled in. Oh, so I feel even less bad about cutting the dashboard out, because where's the piece? This is this side that I cut out, and you can see, look where the fiberglass stops. This big piece of steel's in here because it had no dashboard in it anymore. So what they did was literally welded that piece, or riveted that piece of steel to the end of the dashboard over here. I literally cut a rivet in half. And then they built a dashboard out of Bondo. That's what this pink stuff is. I can tell because if you've ever sanded Bondo, you know the smell. So the entire dashboard was some or all Bondo. I don't know if there seems to still be some traces in here, but I suspect it either had broken off or it was severely damaged or it had a bunch of holes punched in it or something. But a large chunk of the dashboard, you can see is just Bondo over stuff. And then on the very end, there's another bit of fiberglass there. So I feel no guilt now about cutting the dashboard because most of it wasn't there anyway, or was badly damaged or something. So that's great. That's going to give me the clearance I need for my legs when the body's on. This edge, obviously, like I said, is going to get finished up. The metal also back here needs to get trimmed back some more because I just cut through both. When I'm doing body work again, I'll trim. There's like a big loose piece twanging over here. I'll trim more of that back, clean that up so that there isn't a sharp edge back there. But yeah, I didn't get the fronts and rears done because I'm out of metal for the things I want to use for that. Realized I don't have any angle. I don't have anything to make the bumpers out of. I was thinking of using this stuff for the bumper, but I realized I actually want it to be wider and possibly thinner. So I need that. I need the metal to come out to it. I need the L channel. Same in the back here. I'm going to have to run a beam across over here, and then the bumper, one of the bumper brackets will be here, and one will be sort of more out where you expect it to be because of this. If I decide I'm going to put a support through that other hole on the body, I have plenty of clearance in here now to do it, and obviously the other side won't be any kind of hassle. When I built this, like I said, this is going here. Most of it's built out of the same stuff that the main hoop is made out of there, but then the piece going across the gas tank is thinner, just to make sure that it doesn't end up interfering with the gas tank. The engine will still be able to come out with this on there. It just won't come up at all. It'll just have to slide, unbolt it and slide it back. Not a problem. Not going to affect it at all. So that's I don't know what time it is. Oh, yeah, that's the end of the set. I'm done for tonight. But yeah, that was a great, productive day. I feel real good about all of that. This main section in here is all fabbed, aside from one side 100% decide what I'm doing from the floor. Mechanically, it's all fabbed. This is ready to go on as soon as I'm ready to do that. Yeah, we're golden. This is great. I love this. It's coming together well. I actually like having the side structure on here. It makes it also look a little bit more complete as a chassis. And like I said, it'll give a little bit more protection to the body. It does end up sitting above the body, about a ½ inch, like the bottom of the body. But still, if you're reaching up to carry it, there's something under there now. There's, or if you push on the sides, there's something there. So, kick ass. I will see you tomorrow. Lunchtime work. I got to weld this on, but I got to weld it on, like I said, under that. So I'm just using some metal tape because it seems like the strongest to tape the two inner ones in at the bottom. There, that one's better. Basically, the idea behind this is I'm going to put the body on. I'm going to reach in with one hand and tip this up tight against the body as best I can, and then tack the two ends. Hopefully that'll be enough to keep it in the right position, and I can take the body back off and weld it on. It's obviously not going to be at this angle, but that's just, it's flopped down now. I may even stick something under here to help keep it up a little more and make my life easier. It's the only way I can really think to do this because, like I said before, I don't want to assume any angle for this and discover that the body's sitting on it weird. This is not intended to have the body sit flat on it the whole way across. I'm going to have to do something probably with wood to make it match the shape of the body in this area, but this is getting the framework for that in place. All right, that wasn't actually so hard once I moved the body back and was doing it from underneath, not trying to do it from inside the engine, the passenger compartment. However, also putting the box back on, I think I can raise the exhaust a little. I was really overly paranoid about how far down the body came. Easy enough though, I can just cut that pipe, slide it up a bit, re-weld it. Because I want it clear of the body, but I don't need it to be this far down relative to it. So that'll be good because it'll no longer be the lowest point in the back. And that'll also solve my problem with it hitting here probably, if I'm careful about how I do it. I didn't get a chance to go get metal, so couldn't really work on a lot tonight. I cleaned up a couple spots I didn't like so much. I ground down the top of that. But the only real thing I did was tuck this up significantly. I did it in chunks, but I probably took at least an inch out of that extension that I welded in to get this tucked up nice. It's still, solidly below. I may still put an exhaust pipe on it, but it's now no longer down here where it's guaranteed to get scraped and smashed. It is clear of the frame, but not by much. What I'm going to do now, instead of laying a bar on top of these, is I'm going to weld obviously a bar on the front of these because of my new clearance issue, which is actually good because a bar on top would have made getting the engine a little awkward since I added that framework at the top, but a bar on the front won't. It does mean I will have to build sort of up for bumper mounts or step it up or something. We'll figure it out. But I like that better. It's still, safely low and out of the way, but it is less smashable that way. So, picking away at it. All right, another day. So we're going to put a front bumper on it at the very least. I think we're going to put a rear bumper on, but also it needs more weight over the front end because all the weight's in the back. And it's even worse when I'm sitting on top of it. So we're going to build a nice strong structure for the front bumper, and the rear bumper is going to be much closer to decorative. It's not going to be decorative, but it's going to be closer to it. To that end, I picked up some flat bar to make the physical bumpers. I'm going to bend that, to roughly fit this front shape. And then I can go straight back to these spots where that other overrider was welded on this back when it was on the mobility scooter. And I think just 2 straight shots back, bumper, maybe a little bit of reinforcing if that doesn't feel strong enough. But I think that should be plenty. I also got this L here because I was actually thinking about putting it like there to have something for the body to sit on, but we'll burn that particular bridge when we get to it. In the back, it's a little more complicated, as we've kind of talked about before, because I have that way up there that I can kind of run a straight shot all the way back from. It should be fine, but then this is down over here, and I have to be careful about sort of where stuff is. I no longer can lay it on top because I moved the muffler. I can go across here, but there's a limit to how low I want to go because it becomes a thing that can drag. So what I may end up doing is putting the thinner stuff across and then building off. But the back structure does not need to be anywhere near as strong because you're not going to back this into something. So the back structure is mostly just to hold the bumper in place and both give you something to lift on and also just look matching to the front. So this can be a much lighter weight, if it has to be, than the front. Alrighty, that went really well and easy overall. Front bumper, nice and solid all the way around. The whole chassis needs final welding. I need to pull the engine off and stuff to do the painting, and at that point I'm going to be able to turn it over, do final welding. So one of the things that's going to happen at that point is I'm going to round the ends of these. But there we go. It's very simple. 2 bars coming forward, and then the ends were super floppy, so I put in some braces for them, and now this is all super strong. And then in the back, basically the same idea. Got one brace coming all the way forward, and then a little kick out for that. This side kicks up and over. Obviously, that side's less strong with the smaller stuff, but it's still strong enough for what it needs to do. If when I'm doing all that final welding, this still feels weak, I can put some more bracing in. Ditto, I may put a weld across at some point between this long one and that side, but right now I don't think it's necessary, so we're not going to worry about it. There's also, like, they're very simple, but they kind of finish out the body a little bit, I think. They're not as nice as if I had the original fiberglass bumpers, but they give something there. And I think with a little paint, they're going to look nice. And like I said, they're going to help protect the body a bit. So at this point, all the fab is done. The body needs a lot of final welding in a lot of places. There's 1 or 2 little braces here and there I might put in. I'm leaning towards putting in a steel floor. I have some steel over there that's been around forever that I can use. But none of that really needs to be on camera, obviously. It's just going to be donkey work of find every single... Literally, I'm going to have to go through and check every single weld all the way around to make sure that it's fully welded from front to back. Do a little grinding cleanup and whatnot, make things look neater here and there. Like, you know, that top piece right there is kind of ugly. But what I can do later is go in, grind that down, you know, move that edge down, put something in, you know, just to make that a smoother transition. I got a lot of places all over the car that I would do that. But at this point, it is built from a functional standpoint. So that's great, super major milestone. So the chassis is going to get put aside now for me to finish up the bodywork, or start the bodywork, I guess. Obviously, there's a lot of that to be done. And then the chassis will make a reappearance when I'm at the paint stage. But I think I'm going to go take it for a little spin right now. This is ridiculous. I love it. So it accelerates plenty fine. It has more than enough power to get myself in trouble. It does not steer super great, and I'm pretty sure that's a weight problem. If I try and like whip it around and do big turns at any kind of speed, it either doesn't want to turn or starts to skid out or whatever, and I think that's just there's nowhere near enough weight over the front. It's controllable, but you just got to kind of pay attention. So I think the final version needs to have some extra weight in the front. Come on, there we go. rattles like crazy. I'm going to have to put some foam or something on the top of the thing and probably secure the body down a little better. So it's got plenty of power. I'm glad I didn't put that bigger motor in. This thing would be terrifying. Power is not a problem at all. Steering is the problem. And that's clearly a weight distribution problem. There's so, between the motor and me being at the back over the rear axle, the front end's got very little weight. So slow speed, it's fine. But once, it may have been visible when I'm doing the U-turns and stuff. Once you start trying to turn at faster speeds, it wants to either plow or it wants to kind of kick out or whatnot. It's controllable, but it's a little weird. So I think I might add a place for a weight at the front just to weigh the front down, especially if an adult's riding it. If the kid's riding it, they're going to be more forward, they're going to be more down. It's going to be less of an issue, but for an adult, it could definitely use that. But it's a delight. Oh man, I'm having so much fun. This is so silly. I'm so happy. It works. It's great. It definitely needs fine-tuning here and there, but the basic concept is 100% on board. I now fit perfectly fine. Like, I can operate the pedals with no difficulty, having cut that out. I'm really close to the steering wheel, but it doesn't, because that's my full lock-to-lock, it doesn't affect my ability to drive it at all. So yeah, I think we're going to call that a massive win to the end of this episode. Massive milestone. And we're going to call it the end of the episode. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.